I'm Errol Hayden, and this is my literary journey. My metaphor is the interaction with the hometown. In the early stages, it is limited. Certain key locations that are visited frequently will be familiar, but most is completely new and unfamiliar. During the school age, I gain knowledge, recognition, and understanding increase. At this point, I'm also able to navigate with limited supervision. As an adult, I begin to guide children through these early stages. In preschool, like most, my communication was very limited. It was highly influenced by those around me. In fact, my first word was kakita, which was a poor attempt at replicating my grandfather, who would constantly refer to me as a character. As my life experience increased, as did my grasp of language. During primary school, I found my language to be above that of my peers. I always did well in writing tasks, and regularly found myself explaining bigger words to friends in conversations. I was always reading bigger books than them as well, and reading at a higher reading level. I was able to use my language to understand the world around me. This was mainly due to consuming the media my parents would be watching, and watching the news and reading newspapers. This increased my language understanding and introduced me to new words and concepts I would not have learnt if I was just consuming child media. During adolescence, my feeling of superiority declined. Obviously, my knowledge had not declined, simply the others had increased. My peers were also interacting with adult-orientated entertainment, meaning that they too were being introduced to these same words and concepts. I still found myself above average in English class, however, regular conversations were more equal. At this point, I lost interest in books. This is because of the fact that due to several sporting commitments, my family stopped going on regular trips to the library, and I had less access to books. At this time, I gained more interest in movie, TV, and video games, and therefore my interest in reading declined. In my tertiary study, I've been introduced to much new vocab. At first, this was quite a jump. However, most of it is simply a substitution of old vocabulary I was using in my schooling. Several terms like LMS are simply a substitution for things I was using at school, like, for example, compass. In my future teaching, I'll be teaching secondary students who are already fairly competent with language. Therefore, I believe it is important to speak to them like adults. It is important not to alter my speech in any way. Therefore, if they are introduced to new words that they are not familiar with, they can simply search it up to find a definition. My strengths are my ability to scan and summarize information. I can see a large block of text and then condense it into several small dot points. This is especially useful in my tertiary study when reading textbooks or listening to lectures, because rather than trying to remember an incredibly large block of information, I'm able to nail it down to the key dot points, which is much easier to memorize. My weaknesses are my ability to put my thoughts on a page. Many times I'll have many ideas in my head, however, when it comes to actually writing it down in essay format, it is very difficult for me to do. I can work on this by continuing to develop my essay writing by practice. That's the only way. Thank you for listening.